Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sarah Axelson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm Vice President of Advocacy at the Women's Sports Foundation. We're excited to have you all join us for our town hall today, Women Coaches and Leaders, Title IX's Impact and Future Promise. Together with women leaders in college sports, we've gathered advocates and leaders to discuss the effect Title IX has had on women coaches and leaders and strategies and actionable steps on how to get and keep more women in the leadership and coaching pipeline. This discussion is part of our Title IX 50th Anniversary Town Hall Series presented by our national partner, TIAA. Be sure to check out TIAA's Retire Inequality campaign, and we'll drop a link in the chat now. Live captions are available for this discussion. If you don't currently see them, you may need to turn them on. And before we get started today, I want to take a moment to acknowledge Brittany Griner, who has been wrongfully detained in Russia for more than 280 days. It is imperative that we continue to bring awareness to Brittany's situation and to continue to advocate for her and other wrongfully detained prisoners to be safely returned home. If you'd like to learn more about what you can do to advocate for Brittany, please visit wearebg.org, and we'll drop a link in the chat now. I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's conversation, Patti Phillips. Patti is the CEO of Women Leaders in College Sports and is a sports executive and an industry leader on women's career advancement with over 30 years of experience. She has been the CEO of Women Leaders in College Sports since 2010, and under her leadership, the organization has changed its name, has seen triple-digit growth in membership, and expanded the brand to women in pro sports and sports business. Patti is a well-known keynote speaker on topics such as leadership, performance, teamwork, and culture. She has a TEDx talk on the subject of potential and has been featured on the New York Times and USA Today hosts the Women Leaders podcast. She was also named a 2020 Game Changer by Sports Business Journal. She's at Baker University and Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. And in addition, she founded the Women Leaders Performance Institute, a leadership consulting program for all business industries designed through the lens of sports. Patti has worked in the sports industry in various capacities, and she has dedicated her career to coaching, mentoring, and empowering women at all levels and in all industries. Please join me in welcoming Patti Phillips.
Sarah, thanks so much. Really happy to be here. Super excited, as always, to collaborate with you and the team at the Women's Sports Foundation. And really excited about this conversation and the panelists that we have. So first, I want to introduce the panelists, and I want to lay the framework for our conversation that we're going to have. So I want to start with Kristen Bourne. Kristen has coached cross-country skiing at the collegiate and professional level for the last 3 years, including 2 years as the assistant coach at the College of St. Scholastica. She was a 2021 Women's Sports Foundation Tara Vanderveer Fellow. We're going to talk a lot about that. She skied for Northern Michigan University, qualifying for the NCAA championships 3 times and representing the U.S. at the World Junior Championships and the United States 23 World Championships. Currently, she's the U.S. ski cross-country D-team coach and U.S. ski and snowboard, as well as traveling full-time on the World Cup supporting all national team athletes. And Kristen, you're coming to us from Finland, is that right?
Norway, very close.
Norway. Finland was last week. So just amazing. Thank you so much for being here. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the legendary coach Muffet McGraw, who was the Notre Dame women's basketball coach for 33 seasons. She won 77% of her games, even without recruiting me, which was unfortunate. She's one of just 5 coaches in the NCAA Division I history with over 930 wins, 9 Final Fours, and multiple NCAA championships. She's in both the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame and the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Muffet, we're thrilled you're here. You've been vocal on a lot of these topics, and we're really looking forward to continuing the conversation with you. So thanks for being here.
You bet.
And rounding out our panelists, we have Gloria Nevarez. She's been serving as the commissioner of the West Coast Conference since April of 2018. She's one of 9 female conference commissioners serving in Division I athletics and is the first Latin American to become a commissioner in Division I. She's currently on the NCAA Division I Transformation Committee, the NIT Selection Committee, and the NCAA Women's Basketball Oversight Committee, In addition to serving on the Women's Sports Foundation Board of Trustees and the Women Leaders Board of Directors, as of January 1, Gloria will be the new commissioner of the Mountain West Conference, one of only 2 women to serve as commissioner of an FBS conference. So Gloria, welcome. We're thrilled you're here. And Gloria, you're welcome. We're thrilled you're here. That's your cue. There you are.
Hello, thanks, Patty.
Good to see you. Okay, so we've got expert panelists here, and to lay the groundwork of this conversation that we're going to have, which we only have about 40 minutes, and obviously we have a lot to talk about. Everyone listening, please know we will have a Q&A at the end, so be dropping your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get those over towards the end of the conversation. But to lay the groundwork, we want to share the current status of women in coaching and leadership at the collegiate level today. And while sport opportunities for girls and women have grown exponentially since Title IX was passed, the number of women coaches tells a different story. And we're going to show a graphic here on the screen. And with that, you can see that in 1970 and 71, in that academic year, 90% of all head coaches for women's college teams were women. And in 2020 and 2021, women held only 41% of head coaches positions in the NCAA sports, and only 6% of head coach positions in men's NCAA sports. Further, the BIPOC women are particularly underrepresented in the coaching ranks, making up just 7% of head coaches of women's sports and only 4% of athletic directors, which is really unacceptable. And this is really why we're having this conversation. We are going to frame this really broad conversation into kind of 4 bucket areas. It will go further than that, but just for those listening, we're going to talk about some issues that we think are barriers for women in leadership of both coaching and administration. And 1 is hiring in the pipeline. 2 is retention and advancement. 3 is leadership and coaching in general. And then 4th is legislation and what's going on right now in the legislative framework, particularly as it relates in the NCAA. So we've got our panelists, our expert panelists. We framed the conversation. So I want to start with some questions, and I've asked all of our panelists to not go on mute and to jump in. We hope this is more of a conversation with the 4 of us, but as we start with the hiring and the pipeline, Kristen, I actually want to start with you as a young coach who recently went from being an assistant, to overseeing your own team. What has that experience been like for you, and what changes, do you hope to see as you progress as a coach in the industry?
Yeah, I guess when I started, or at least initially going into the role, I thought that it was going to be a lot more intimidating than it actually was. I think part of that helps by having a really good mentor, but I guess the transition piece of it all, the hardest part was just realizing that I am making the calls now. I'm not deferring to other people. And granted, in my role right now, I technically am not a head coach, but I'm also not an assistant coach either, but I am still overseeing a team. But I have the leeway, and I have the opportunity to make decisions and make calls the way that I want to do them. And so that can be a little bit daunting at first, but I think over time, it's you learn all these things as an assistant coach. You see these head coaches doing these things, and it ends up you get used to it after a little bit. I do think as well, one of the biggest things that I found was that I'm not in more of a head coach role. I'm not trying to find and have all of the correct answers for everything. That doesn't exist. Everyone has their own flair, has their own experiences that they can bring. Everyone is unique. And for a long time, I was trying to figure out what those very specific things were. And I think that's kind of the wrong approach. I think it's finding those things that you're really strong at, that you're really good at, and that you can bring to the table that other people can't. So I think that was a big piece for me in realizing that the transition isn't so bad.
Yeah.
the other major piece was in the staff that I currently work with. All of the coaches that I work with are men. And I'm the only woman staff that we have on the World Cup full time. And so sitting down with the staff that I have and having an open conversation about experiences that I have had in the past in my career and how I don't want that to happen to the next person that comes and joins us on the road. I don't want that to happen. And I think we can be better than all of these other experiences, and we can make that better for people in the future. So yeah. I think having these open conversations is really important, and making sure that everyone's on the same page. And I feel like that's where I'm starting to make good change. So 6 months in, and it's going well.
Let me ask you this. When you were participating, and then this is part of this kind of hiring and pipeline, did you think, hey, I want to be a coach? So when did that happen for you? And part of our issue is going to be, how do we make sure that that decision happens for more women out there?
Yeah, I mean, I firmly believe that if I had had a woman head coach for any period of my ski career, that I probably would have looked at coaching as a viable career path. But people would tell me that they're like, oh, you'll probably be a coach someday. And I'm stubborn. And I'm like, I don't want to do what everyone thinks I'm going to do. And so I kept pushing it off. And then eventually, through some pretty amazing people reaching out and really setting a goal for themselves to be mentors, all of a sudden they bring you in. And once you're in, all of a sudden it's like, this is awesome. This is super fun. I get to do my passion every single day. And I get to help some pretty amazing athletes. So once I was in it, I was hooked, but it did take a little bit. And it took convincing from other people and examples from other women coaches to show me that this was a good career.
Yeah, I love that you've had mentors that really kind of pushed you in that direction. Muffet, you are one of those. You are a woman that's been coaching for many, many years, and you've also committed to hiring women as assistant coaches to try to get them into the pipeline. What else do we need to do to make sure more women are choosing coaching as a profession?
Well, I think first we've got to get them to apply for the job. I think that as women, sometimes we are always waiting to be asked, and it's not the junior prom. It's time to step up and go ahead and apply for the job. And I think we need to do a better job of networking and helping each other and promoting each other for these jobs, because it's basically white men doing the hiring, and they're hiring a lot of white men. So we have to go in, and the thing that we're not doing is we're not winning the interview. And I've been reading this really interesting stuff from the Harvard Business Review, and it says, why do we promote incompetent men? Because what happens in the interview, the men come in with a lot of hubris and a lot of confidence, and they win the interview, but they're choosing confidence over competence. Women are competent, but we're not winning the interview, because when we go in, we're talking with we. It's always about we. It's always about collaborating. It's always about the team. Men are saying, I did this, I did that, and that's what I'm going to do for you. So I think that the people in charge need to understand women interview differently than men, and we definitely have the competence to do the job, but I think it's a question of winning the interview, and that's something that I think we can get better at.
Yeah, first of all, I'm writing really quickly here with everything you said, and want to go back to, gosh, I should have applied to go to the prom. Maybe I could have gone if I'd put my hand up and applied for that. But Muffet, so much, and Gloria can tell you this, that you're right about the winning the interview. And we always say with women in these jobs, there's two pieces. You got to be able to do the job, but then you have to win the interview, and it has nothing to do with it. Winning the interview, actually, sometimes as women, we do have to show up differently than how we show up every day because of the people hiring. So we're going to come back to that, but this whole notion of applying for the job, don't think you have to have all the requirements. What we always say is you actually don't know how to do the job until you do the job. You don't have all the things. So actually, you have to have the confidence that you can, and the network. And that's one of the things that we've tried to do, and I know the Women's Sports Foundation has as well, to create these systems to help women advance collectively. So a lot there, Muffet. That was great. Gloria, what else are you seeing? So that's the coaching side. What about the pipeline and the hiring on the administrative side? And actually, you've done it. You just actually went through the process again recently and are starting a new job in January. But what else are you seeing as far as what needs to be done to help cultivate the pipeline for women to get into these leadership roles?
Yeah, and I just want to first say, hashtag everything Muffet said. I mean,
absolutely.
all of it. I'm just nodding my head, pumping my fist inside. One. And then two, you know, at the WCC, after the murder of George Floyd, as many conferences did, we all came together and talked about social justice. And our presidents and athletic directors wanted to do something that had meaningful and lasting change. So we all put out statements, but we went a step further and adopted the first ever and still only conference-wide hiring commitment. So for all your head coaching and assistant coach positions and key administrative positions within your athletic department, every hire or opening, you must interview someone of a historically underrepresented background. And it was purposely broad so that in the college space, women virtually do not coach men's teams. We've had integration at the pro level and in basketball and football and international, but yet the college space, we still haven't gotten there. So if you interview a woman for the head coach position of a men's team, you would satisfy this commitment. And folks ask, you know, well, it sounds like the Rooney Rule really hasn't worked in football to a large degree, but in college, we're different. Our mission and values align with educating young people, promoting diversity on campus and in faculty, and our athletic departments, largely because we don't have a lot of turnover. We have really good jobs in the WCC. And so we just hadn't had that same kind of diversity that reflects our athletic and campus populations. And in only 2 years of having this policy in place, we've had over 97% compliance rate and a higher through rate. Now, remember, hiring the candidate is not part of the commitment. It's just interviewing. Right. But we've had over a 50% hiring rate of the underrepresented candidate into the league. And Patty, what you had said about pipeline, that's key for us because at head coaching level, it's a very small pool. We're talking about high level national championship caliber Division I, all right? You know, you're going for a very specific, very small pool, but this applies to the pipeline. So our schools are being more deliberate and investing time and resources in the hiring of those entry-level positions first. And second, we're hopeful and optimistic this is signaling to the world that you have a chance when you interview at a WCC school, a fair chance when you interview at a WCC school. And I think that goes to what Muffet said about got to apply. But, you know, I too have that sensitivity about, well, am I going to be the token female or in the pool or whatever? So I think those are important signals to the pipeline and an important process in building it.
Yep. And Gloria, what you all have done with the Russell Rule has been amazing, and your results signify that. And I think, though, at the end, you alluded to something really important. Everyone that wants opportunities in this area should look for hirers that have a proven track record of making sure that their hiring practices are diverse. That's the first thing. And then, you know, trying to break through and getting in those roles. And so these systems can help us with the pipeline. One, these systems and processes. And another one is the Women's Sports Foundation and Tara Vanderveer with the Fellows Program. And Kristen, you know, that really, you talked about that really helping you get your foot in the door. Can you talk a little bit more about that, how you applied and how that got you into the coaching ranks?
Yeah, so I first applied because the head coach that I worked for, Maria Stuber, who's also the founder of the Women's Ski Coaches Association, she reached out and convinced me to come coach with her in Duluth. And one of the convincing things that she used was that she had this grant and this fellowship that she had her eye on that she really wanted to apply for. We applied for it 1 year, didn't get it, applied for it again, and we got it. And it was one of the most critical pieces that has turned my career into what it is now, because number one, it connected me with a whole group of women who are all working towards a similar goal across all different sports, which is amazing. Like I'm never going to meet an assistant coach that coaches water polo. We don't cross over. And so to finally have those connections is really amazing. And then also it provides these professional development opportunities that will accelerate your career. It did for me. Like all of a sudden I was going on the World Cup for 2 weeks, an experience that I don't know if any woman had really had, where I was able to shadow, wax tech, coach some of the best athletes in the world. All of a sudden I get that experience. And here I am now in a role where I'm on the World Cup working with these exact same athletes. I wouldn't have gotten that experience in the first 10 years of my career, maybe even 15 or ever. Women are just not given that opportunity. And so here we are now. And I credit the Women's Sports Foundation and that Tara Vanderveer grant for helping me get to where I'm at right now. It was huge.
Yeah, that is huge. It's amazing. And it's a great story to hear. I love that you mentioned that the connection with the other women that wanted to do what you want to do is so important. Kind of that like-mindedness is great. Okay, so hiring pipeline, big piece. We got to make sure women know that they have opportunities in these areas. We need systems in place. Women need to raise their hand. We need to talk to hirers about, evaluating competence and not just confidence. So we got to get women hired. And then the next category is we have to retain women and make sure they have opportunity to advance. It seems like that's really been a struggle of late. Women's coaches are opting out, I think, at a much higher rate than others. We're worried about that with administrators as well. I think, we could talk about just the cadence of the business of sports being a 24-hour lifestyle now. But before we get to that bigger picture, anyone can jump in here. What do we think the issues are with retention? What's the main issue with retaining women? And first, let's start with the coaches. What are some of the big issues for retention for women in the coaching fields? And actually, Muffet, I am going to jump to you first here.
Well, I think the decision about having a family, and then women are still in 2022, we're still in charge of the family. We're still in charge of all the responsibilities that go along with that. So I think that's a big issue, and the time commitment. And women don't, the life balance. I think life-work balance, the time commitment, and whether you're going to have a family or not. And I think that the NCAA can do a better job in their legislative part, where we can make rules that will allow women to have some more freedom. I mean, we put in a couple of things where you have to have a mandatory week off, once in the spring, once in the late summer. And people were complaining, mostly men complaining, oh, I can't call recruits right now. So I think we can do a better job of that.
Okay. Anything else on the coaching side, Kristen?
Yeah, I feel like some of it, and I can speak a little bit more to the ski community, is like it's the time commitment, and the travel is pretty significant in the role that I'm in right now. It is hard. There aren't many people that have families that are working these jobs. And so it does skew a little bit more in the favor of men. And I also think that it's lack of being heard and lack of being listened to when you have opportunities that are coming your way that you're not getting experience, you're not getting, you're being told that you don't have enough experience, but then you're not getting any experience, and then they're not listening to you. And so it's like this, you feel like you're going up against this brick wall where you're not feeling like you're making a difference, and you're not getting anywhere, and you're stuck. And I think that gets really hard for people, is when they don't feel like they're supported, or they have much of a trajectory. I think that's a big piece too, is maybe looking for purpose or support elsewhere.
Yeah. Muffet, you coached at Notre Dame for 33 years, and a lot of changes happened during that time with recruiting. And, how did you do it? What do you think was the key? Was it a supportive administration, supportive spouse? What was it? Great assistant coaches? How were you able to do it?
Well, I think first it is your spouse. I think you have to have somebody that's going to be supportive of you and can do the other things. And I was very fortunate that my husband took over. He does all the cooking, he does the laundry, he took care of our son. He did pretty much everything. If you have a supportive spouse, I think that's a big key. And then hiring the right staff. I think hiring your staff is the most important thing you do as a head coach. You have to have diversity where you can fill in the weaknesses that you have. So you have different people doing different things, and they can take the load off of you. And the last thing is in recruiting. I wanted to coach people that I wanted to be around for 4 years. So, I passed on some pretty good players because they didn't fit in with what I wanted. I wanted to enjoy my time. So I think that was a big part of it too. I really was fortunate that I could have good players, good parents, and help at home.
And Muffet, yeah, go ahead, Gloria.
I would just jump in, what Muffet said about having a supportive spouse, absolutely. But I also think there's some HR mechanisms administratively that need to catch up with the demands of modern coaching. Because I was in a situation where we had a national level assistant coach going to NCAAs who just had a child, and we wanted to send a caretaker with the team to assist, but university policies prohibited that. So we made her a manager. But, there just needs to be an acknowledgement in your systems that your coaches, females, have different issues and demands given that don't match the rest of campus, perhaps. And we need to get our systems up so that we can support them when they do go on the road and need to recruit and do everything else.
Yeah. I mean, that's just embarrassing, actually, that we are so behind the times. Muffet, I want to ask you back to you were so committed to hiring women assistant coaches to help position them to be head coaches. So you're all women with families, all this and that. Was that harder? And again, this is a message to everyone else because, there's been I don't want to say that I've heard necessarily, but there's, you hear things that, people want to hire men's coaches because they're more available to do all the travel and nonstop, and because they are the primary people. How did you do that with mostly women on your staff for so many years?
Well, I just think it's so important that you have role models and you have women, and the team has somebody to look up to and relate to, because everybody's different. You can't just have one token woman and think, well, everybody on the team is going to be able to relate to this person. So I think one of the things that we had to do was, you couldn't say like, oh, can you go see that game? They're playing tomorrow or they're playing tonight. Because they were going to have a problem with daycare or getting a babysitter. So we had to really plan it out. I think we had to do a better job of looking ahead and letting everybody know this is the time that we're going to need you. Obviously, you know what your season's like, but recruiting is a whole other issue on top of that. So I think looking ahead and being flexible. Hey, you don't need to be in the office right now. Go home, spend time with your kids, bring your kids to practice, being available and willing to let kids join in a lot of things.
Yep. Gloria, you mentioned, that we need to catch up with, policies, as leaders. So as other athletic directors and commissioners, what else needs to happen so that we can create better environments or systems so that women can thrive and they have opportunities to coach?
Yeah, and I agree with, institutionalizing this belief that it's important to have women coaching women and mentoring women and being role models. And that starts at the top. And, a lot of university structures are dependent on state and local regulations and laws, and really infusing that value system into how we create policies in around our program. And as tragic as COVID was, it really helped us embrace virtual officing. And I think, again, Muffet I need a t-shirt that says #what Muffet said. That really helped us embrace being able to have a personal touch. Now, again, we do need to be out on the road. We do need to be in person for a lot of things. But, frequent flyer status, mileage points should no longer be the badge of success. It should be, your X's and O's on the floors, your win-loss, and being able to integrate some of these workplace flexibilities to have a life, but also win national titles.
Yep.
And I wanted to interject here. I think sometimes as coaches, you're like, I have to see this kid play every game. We have to use all 7 of our evals. We have to be at every single AAU event. And I think we got to the point where we just said, you know what, we don't. And we don't want to encourage that kind of behavior for recruits to be looking around going, oh, I'm checking to see who's in the stands. If that's what's important to you, don't come to Notre Dame. And we are going to find kids that are going to fit with us that we can have a work-life balance with.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What else though? So the systems need to be in place and you're making decisions on, what you do as coaches or administrators, but what about this other layer that women are evaluated differently? And it seems like, women coaches get fired at a higher rate than men do. Culturally, what is accepted from, a female coach or a male coach is not normally accepted from a female coach. And these are from the women that you're trying to role model. So there's this weird kind of cultural shift that we haven't quite made yet. What's the answer to that? Because we're just seeing that more and more. So not only is it a time factor, there's this other factor that women don't want to get fired at the same rate. So how do we get past that hurdle?
Well, it's really difficult. And I know Gino could say a lot of things to his players and they're like, hey, he's a guy. That's just how guys are. And if I said the same things, they may be in the AD's office the next day. So I think we have to understand that women are looking at us differently. They're expecting different things. They're expecting that compassion, nurturing, sympathy that I never had any of. And so that was always a little difficult for me anyway. And it goes back to recruiting. I'm recruiting kids that are going to be pretty tough and they're going to know how to take the way that I coach, finding that fit, I think is important.
And I think too, when, until I was at the table as in a leadership position, I didn't have the kind of power to control the office place and demand discourse in a certain level, so that now I have an obligation that when I see it, to say something and to address my colleagues peer to peer if I think whether they're not making me uncomfortable or whether they're unaware of how they're coming across. Once you're in that chair, you have the ability to crosstalk, as opposed to when you're not and you witness it and you might not have somewhere to go with it.
Yeah. Kristen, jump in here.
Yeah, I feel like we are still stuck in this time and it's hard to break out of that like societal mentality of like, we have to be perfect and agreeable and polite. And it's like, that hasn't quite gone away yet. And for some reason, we're still kind of holding each other to that, though we also desperately want to break free of it. So how we get away from it, I guess I don't have the answer for it, but we certainly are evaluated differently. All of a sudden, a man, like Muffet was saying, can speak a certain way to their athletes. And if we did the same thing, they're in the AD's office. We're on such a short leash. And it's quite frustrating to watch. I've seen it time and time again with mentors and fellow coaches. They're going through the same thing.
Let me ask you this. As a younger, new coach, do you see yourself coaching for a long time?
I do. And I say that confidently because I know that I have a really solid support network and they are there for me. They challenge me, they support me, and I can bounce ideas off of them. I think that if I didn't have that, it would be a lot more difficult. I feel like where I'm at in my career, I have a lot of support going forward, and I feel the momentum, and I have a lot of motivation to also to represent and make a difference and be a role model for future athletes and future coaches. So I feel like I am in a good place, but I certainly know that that's not the case for everyone. And I think having that support network and having really, really solid mentors is incredibly important.
Yep. I want everyone, what I'm noticing, Kristen, we so appreciate your perspective. She's mentioned support network in every single answer. And I think that's really, really important for all of us to acknowledge on this call, wherever we are, that as women, and the men and women on the call, we're going to get to our champions and how men impact this, but we've got to support each other. It's really, really hard. And feeling like you have support in all phases, and we talk about this, Gloria, as you know, a lot through the administrative ranks, it's like critical. So what I'm hearing before we move on to our next bucket on retention, a couple of things. We need the support network. Muffet, you made some great points that you got to think about who you're recruiting so that you can have the lifestyle and that you are recruiting a certain type of kid. And also you're recruiting certain type of support staff and coaches that work with you as well. And Gloria, as you're saying, as leaders have to speak up and make sure that we're correcting these biases. So I'm going to keep trying to bring up these action items as we go along, because all of us know what the issues are. We're talking about the issues. We're going to dig in, but until we figure out how we fix the issues, nothing's going to change. So we have to all be accountable for taking these steps to move forward. So we've talked a little bit about the hiring pipeline, a little bit about retention advancement. Let's go into kind of this role of leadership and coaching in general. And again, all of this is crossing over. These aren't really totally separate topic areas. But Gloria, I want to start with you here. What other kind of education or awareness is needed from leadership ranks to make a difference in perceptions and policies for both coaches and administrators? So that whether it's obviously the Russell rule has been phenomenal. What else is out there that we could be doing as leaders to make sure that we're changing what's going on here?
You know, on a micro scale, I think about my experience at the Pac-12 conference, and, you know, full disclosure, CEO, Women's Sports Foundation, Danette Layton and I worked together there.
Oh,
But what I thought was really powerful about that is we both had responsibility for men's and women's sports. They weren't siloed in their own senior administrators, and we ensured consistency across the board. Not exact same thing, but it definitely empowered us to achieve equity across the genders in the conference offerings. At a macro level, again, full disclosure, I'm on the board of women leaders. And I think the things you are doing in your organization, for me personally, being able to come together at all levels of my career with executives and middle management to when I am sitting in the chair, being able to have that network and reach out and talk to women confronting the same issues I am was so very important. And I just love what you've done with the different smaller platforms within your larger world so that we can A, know each other, B, have open conversations, and then C, have each other's back when we need to.
Yeah. Muffet, what do you think, you know, with the coaching ranks, you know, as far as what leaders can do to make sure this is possible? You mentioned one earlier that we have to change the hiring practices and what the expectations are. What else needs to be done to create better pathways overall for leadership for women?
I love the Russell rule that Gloria has done a great job. And I wish every conference in the NCAA would actually buy into that. You know, I think we want to change society, right? We got to go all the way back. The way we raise our sons and daughters, we raise them differently. You go to buy a toy for somebody's birthday, you go down the pink aisle, you go down the blue aisle. You go out to your kid's 5-year-old, 6-year-old soccer game, somebody's dad's coaching the team. So these kids are growing up with the idea that men are the leaders and men are in charge. That's where we have to make the change. We have to start earlier. We have to stop telling our daughters how pretty they are and start telling them how smart they are. We have to encourage them to get into STEM and other things. So we have to build that leadership, I think, as parents. And I think this generation is definitely one that's going to change things. I think this is a generation that, unlike my generation, where, oh, thank you, we're so grateful, this is one that's saying we are worthy, we do demand more, and we are going to get more. And I think that's what women's coaches need to do more of, because we're so afraid of losing our job and making waves because we're taught to get along and go along and do it with less. We've never had as much as we've deserved. And I think we have to change our mindset to, I deserve it, I am worthy. And that's what we have to teach our players. Like, yes, you should be getting everything the men's teams are getting. So I think we have to educate ourselves, and I think we have to do a better job of just looking out and seeing all these opportunities. You turn on TV and you're going to see men making more than the female actors and actresses, the producers and everything. You look at politics, no matter what field you're in, we're all in a male-dominated business. And we have to figure out a way to get women to support women and understand that women can lead.
Yeah. Muffet, I love that you went back to literally it's how we were raised and how we are raising our young people and the conversations we're having. I'll never forget Donna Lopiano years ago when she was with the Women's Sports Foundation used to say, give your girls a ball, not a doll. Number one. And number two is, we all, you know, everyone wants to go out and take their kids to watch men's sports. But how many were taking them to watch women's sports, to watch Notre Dame basketball, to watch this other stuff? That is changing. It's changing slowly. But Muffet, to your point, we all can impact that. We could take our, you know, we all can impact. Are we, you know, the other thing is it's hard to be women's sports fans. It's hard. It's actually getting a little better. It was always hard to find women's basketball. It wasn't on the main channels. It was hard to find when it was showing. You had to have certain streaming platforms. And so how do we make it easier to create fandom, to make sure people understand that those opportunities are out there, and then empowering our young people? Which brings me to, you know, I love it. Kristen, you're sitting there hearing from like the GOAT about, you know, coaching and how you need to lean in and know what you deserve. How do you feel when you hear that? Do you feel like you have the agency to speak up now, to raise your hand, to say, hey, I'm noticing some things here? And how does it feel to hear what Muffet just said?
I mean, okay, first of all, the fact that I'm on this panel with Muffet is like the coolest thing ever.
Totally cool.
I mean, I leave every time I hear what she's saying. I've watched videos of her talking about women in leadership and women in coaching, and it's incredibly empowering. Every single day, I believe more and more that I belong in this role, that I am capable in this role, and that I can make this better for the people that come after me. Everything she says is very inspiring. And I do feel like there is movement, maybe not everywhere, but there is movement certainly happening in the ski world towards getting more women in coaching. And I'm certainly feeling very encouraged by it all.
I'm so glad you feel that way. And I can feel your confidence, because when I was coming up, it was like, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to go to HR. I'm going to wait till we're good, till I'm successful, till I've been here a while, because I like this job and I don't want to be the one that's, going to be tossed out. So, and I finally realized, what am I teaching my student athletes? That you are not worthy because we're not winning yet? That is such a wrong thing to say. So I'm glad you feel like you're worthy, because we are. We deserve it from day one.
Yeah, I agree. I think telling athletes that from even before they transition from athlete to whatever they're doing after their life, whether it's coaching or whatever job it is, it's just continuing to represent that, show them that, tell them that. I think we're just continually empowering them as time goes on. And I'm really excited to see where we're going to be in 10, 20 years.
Yeah, and I want to encourage everyone to continue asking questions. I know some are getting dropped in the chat here, so we're going to get to those in just a minute. I do want to quickly transition into this kind of bucket of legislation, which we're already somewhat talking about, which is, what do we need to legislate? We've talked a lot about the Russell Rule, which is what Gloria has done. We hope that more conferences and institutions implement something like that as far as the hiring practices, but also kind of under this governance model of equity and Title IX, which is what we've all been talking about all year. Muffet, can you talk about why it's so important that coaches kind of know what their rights are, but also to continue this conversation we're having with Kristen right now? There is a nuance to how you communicate what you need or what you're not getting. Now, I don't know that. Well, actually, there are women today that are still getting fired for that. It seems like they're getting fired more for what student athletes might be saying, but there's this kind of retaliation. So what's the balance there? How do we navigate that? And obviously we need to have champions that are helping us, but as a woman coach, for those on the call, how do they personally navigate when they're seeing massive inequities right in front of them?
Well, information is power. You need to know what the law is. You need to know what you are entitled to. And with Title IX, it can be difficult sometimes because they have these 3 prongs that you have to look at and say, and the school will say, well, we're satisfying all these requirements. But it's really just a laundry list of things. When do the women play? Are they playing at Thursday night instead of Friday night? When do you get the practice gym? What kind of practice clothes do you have? Are you traveling? Are the men going to some tournament 3 states away, and you're being told you can't do that? What's the salary like between the men's and women's coaches? You have to look at all these things, what's in your budget, but you have to know the law and you have to know what you're entitled to. And then I think there's safety in numbers. I think you have to communicate with your women's coaches. We had a little group of women's coaches, and we joked that we could go anywhere on a golf cart because there weren't very many of us. But we would get together, and it doesn't matter what they like Kristen was saying, it doesn't matter what sport you're coaching, we're all dealing with the same issues. So get to know the other women in your department at your school, and you guys can all get together and we can say, no, we have to change this, and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that golf cart. I would have loved to be in that golf cart. So Gloria, what else, I mentioned in the intro, you're on all the committees with the NCAA, and also as a commissioner, you're in conversations with other commissioners about legislation. What else is going on out there that is helpful, that is going to help and protect women coaches and the opportunities for women to participate?
And I think when Muffet says, you have to know the law, you have to know Title IX, and I think also as leaders, there's an opportunity to take it a step further and to institutionalize equity in your own policies, in your own shop, because you never know what's going to happen on the federal level to the federal law. It's also very much reliant on OCR to enforce and define and to come in and make compliant. So institutionalizing the importance of equity, both in the right thing to do, but I think what we're seeing now is also that women's sports, and you said this, Patty, it's a product. It generates eyeballs. If you invest in it, it will grow. And so it's not just a cause, but really making it part of your business model and institutionalizing the importance of it. And I think that happens at the NCAA level. I think that happens at the conference level. And I don't think there's a campus that doesn't have it institutionalized at their local level somehow. So it's really holding those entities accountable as well.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to start getting to some of the questions that are dropped in here. I still have a few too, so we're just going to keep on going here, and I want to encourage our other listeners to drop something in. But here's our first question from the audience, and that is, what advice do you all have for a woman later in her career thinking about making a career change into coaching at any level? What are the best places to check for opportunities, and is schooling or education needed?
It's difficult to get into coaching. It's all about who you know, and that is a big part of how you get a job. So I would say one of the things I tell young people coming out is to just get out there and go work some people's camps, go watch them practice, get to know them, get to meet them. I'm shocked at how few women go around and watch people practice. I mean, there's always a crowd at our men's teams practice. And women's coaches don't seem to do that. And we're great sharers. Pat Summitt was one of the best. And if people would just reach out and say, hey, I want to do this. Can I come to practice and watch? That's how you get to know people. And that's how you get to learn.
Yeah, I think, Muffet, the first part of your answer is such an important part of what, as women, we have to get better at. We talk about this relational savvy. And honestly, you said it's who you know. We like to say it's not only who you know, it's who knows you. And we'll go to bat for you, but you have to be in these quote networks, and women are building them now. So we, all the coaches associations, our organization, we've talked a lot about this. So that is out there, but it does take you have to initiate that if you're interested in that. So, and obviously administrators, I have administrators calling me all the time people want to hire women now. So we need more candidates. So definitely if you're interested, I'd say go for it. Here's another question. This is back to something that we talked about earlier too. So what is one thing that women can do to distinguish themselves as the best candidate when they get into that hiring process? All three of you can give a tip here. Gloria, you just went through this most recently. And so maybe what tip do you have for distinguishing yourself? And then I definitely want both Muffet and Kristen to jump in here.
I definitely felt, and this is common sense, but a huge difference between applying for a leadership position that I was aspiring to, having not yet sat in the chair, and then applying for one that I had already sat in the chair. Two completely different preparation models. But what I will say is I had help. I reached out and I had a consultant, and I also had colleagues running me through the questions, advising me on the answers. And, previous to the WCC position, I had kind of attacked these things solo. Not that I struggle in interview or struggle in preparation, but having that outside influence, people to bounce things off of, to help me shape my answers, to get concise and present myself. And, Muffet said it, I as a leader versus we in our organization. That's a very key pronoun difference in representing yourself as a leader in the room, and just other things like that. Speaking as a commissioner rather than a senior associate. And I got all of that from external influences. And so, broadening that scope before you go into the room, I think really helped me.
Yeah, Gloria, no question. Preparation is key. For me, I think it's about your vision. You've got to go in with the vision of what this is going to look like. Here's where you're going to take this team. This is my vision of where we're going to go. And you just bring people along with you because you have that motivational, inspirational kind of quality of like, this is where we're going to be, and here's how we're going to get there. And you have the confidence to say, this is what we're reaching for. Not like, well, I just, I hope we do well. So I think coming in with a vision and a plan, and then showing the confidence to execute it.
Love it.
I think to play off of kind of both of their answers a little bit is like coming into that interview with some really key passion points for you that are maybe a little bit different. I think that has been really helpful for me in the future, or in my interviews in the past, is having those things laid out of exactly like, this is what I want to do in this position. These are like the first things that I'm going to do when I get into this position, and having that goal and showing that you're really determined and that you are excited about being in that role. Those were quite helpful during my interview process.
You know, and I would draft on what Kristen and Muffet were saying, you know, vision as a leader is the thing you have to sell. One of the things I suffer from when trying to prove my expertise is verbal vomit, or maybe going too far down the rabbit hole in detail. And in both interviews, I succinctly put my vision on a one-sheeter, little PowerPoint thing, and just handed it out and stuck to my top 3 to 5 talking points. And it just really helped me narrow and present the big picture without going too far into details that no one in an interview needs to hear.
Yeah, really important notes here. I mean, everything is about preparation, and all of them talked about that. You know, in order to speak your vision, you have to prepare it. You know, we really recommend getting a coach all the time. All great leaders have coaches. So getting a coach in preparation is huge. Another question here, and Muffet, I'm going to start with you. Oh, the other thing is, got to get a job. Gloria, I love that you said it's very different. Getting the job, you know, going now, you had to get a job as a commissioner in order to get the next level up. Muffet didn't start at Notre Dame. So sometimes you got to get a job and like cut your teeth on it. And then you progress as a coach, as an administrator, as a leader. But what about, you know, your thoughts on running your own program as a coach with a less than supportive athletic director? What can those coaches be doing to build their endurance, confidence, regardless of the support around them? So Muffet, I'm going to start with you on that one.
Well, I think most of us at least started out without a supportive athletic director. I mean, I had some that didn't even know any of the players on my team, never came to a game, went on vacation when we went to the Final Four. So I just always ignored the athletic director. Sorry, Gloria, I don't know. But it to me is like, I'm the master of what I'm doing right here. I'm going to do what I want to do, and then try to pull them along. And so what I would start to do was I would say to my AD, hey, are you going out to football practice today? How about if I come with you? I'd love to see practice, but really, I just want to get time with him. You know, or I would just drop an email every now and then when something good happened. You know, hey, just want to let you know, we had this big win, or you know, I got this big recruit, or something happened. Trying to include them a little bit more, but I kind of thought it was a bonus when they weren't looking over my shoulder. I appreciated that, and I could do my own thing.
Yeah. Good for you, Muffet. The other thing is, own it. Like, you know, we can't sit back. It's not as it should be. You shouldn't have an AD that does not support your program, or doesn't know, or goes on vacation when you're at the Final Four. But what Muffet did was found a way through it. She didn't let that be the negative impact that impacted her as a coach or her team. I love it that you found ways to spend time with your AD. So that's fantastic. Any other thoughts there? Any other tips?
Well, I think I'm stealing a Patti Phillips, but I think what Muffet just described is, you know, grow where you're planted. You know, make it the best possible situation, control what you can control. And then when you grow out of that, look for the next pot. But definitely, you know, don't let that kind of negativity, because it's always going to be there, internal, external, whatever it is, limit what you're able to do and control.
Yeah. We're getting really close to the hour here, and I want to do a little bit of wrap up in just a second, but before that, and I know there's a ton of questions here that we didn't get to, and I apologize for that. I want all three of you, what's your last bit of advice to coaches on the call, administrators? The whole point of this is we want more women in these leadership roles. What is your best bit of advice that you want to give everyone listening, and that will listen to the recording moving forward? Muffet, I'm going to start with you.
I was going to start with Gloria. You know, I think that it's just so important that as women, we can be so judgmental sometimes. Just the way we meet people, the way we look at what their house, their hair, their outfit, what are they doing? How are they holding themselves? You know, men get past all of that so quickly, and they use each other. We hate that word. I'm not going to use you to get tickets to this event or that event, but we have to do a better job being less judgmental, more curious about what, stealing from Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental, and trying to really just support women in general across the board, in and out of sports.
Love it. Muffet, have you seen the mural on the side of our building? Strong women lift each other up. Come to Kansas City so we can get a picture together. But that is so huge. I love it. All right, Kristen, you're up next.
Okay, I would say apply, do it. Even if you don't meet half of the requirements on there, it doesn't matter, because there's a ton of men that are still applying, even though they only meet 2 of them. So do it. Number 2, try and seek out professional development opportunities. If you are a head coach and you have an assistant coach, push them to do more professional development. That is going to go such a long way for them and for you and for your team. And just encourage your athletes to continue to think about coaching in the future, support them, and let's try to get more women in coaching and leadership roles.
Amen. Love it. All right, Gloria, you're our closer, sister.
So I always like to talk about the difference between mentors and advocates, because, you know, I have mentees and I get approached by people, hey, can you be my mentor? And I'm not overly, you know, warm, fuzzy. I'm not the shoulder you're wanting to cry on. But if we're going to go have a meet and greet and have coffee and I want to get to know you, I will happily be your advocate and help you open doors and provide a reference. But, you know, so there's a difference. You should, you know, have the different women in your world that can be your mentors, that help you through the hard times, that can advise you on some of that work-life balance stuff, versus I think you need a wide and deep network of advocates who you know, who you can ask about a certain job, who can ask to connect you to people and that type of thing. I feel like in the women's world, we're all looking for mentorship, which it's important, but I think you need to distinguish between those that are your inner circle, your inner board of directors, and then your external advocates.
And that's where men can help us, right? We need men to be advocates because they're already at the table.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, this is obviously, I hope everyone's taking notes like I am with this great information. I want to throw out a couple of other things that you all said that I want people to remember this. Information is power, always. So when you're dealing with inequities, know the law, know your rights, but also there's power in numbers. And we keep talking about supporting each other, being around people. So on your campus, in your departments, but also more broadly, find the organizations. Ours is one, Women's Sports Foundation is one. There's other organizations. So make sure that you are finding that support and power that you need. Get a coach, know your vision. Who you surround yourself with matters, whether it's your coaches or your champions. And honestly, we didn't get to this topic enough, but men are overall the ones in the positions of power. So we need to align with them and actually get them to champion us, which we can do. But overall, you've all talked about owning your power. Like, we have more control sometimes than we think we do. We have to get through the inequities with our power and with the support systems that we surround ourselves with. So speak up. I got tons of notes. I don't know if I can put these down somewhere and share them, but we'll do that. We're up against the hour. Sarah, is there anything else we need to say? I know you dropped some resources in the chat. Any final comments before we close out here?
No, we are all set. Thank you so much, Patty, for moderating this conversation. And thank you to all of our panelists for such a fantastic discussion. We're so thrilled to have all of you for this important conversation.
All right, let's go out there. Raise our hand. We got to go change the game, sisters. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, panelists.